Steve Gardner does a wonderful job covering baseball for USA Today. Kind enough to join us as he does every Thursday on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. How you been, Steve?
Good, Rich. How about you?
I'm doing well. I mentioned the Phillies at the top of the hour because they're a fascinating team because if you're a fan, they'll frustrate the heck out of you. They'll lose a horrible game, and then they typically will bounce back and they'll regroup. We look what transpired on Tuesday when the pen imploded, and then they get the huge win last night, despite the fact that Arrieta was not his sharpest. But at least they're showing you they're a resilient group.
Indeed, and that's what you need to have over the course of 162 games because it's a season filled with peaks and valleys, and I think for Phillies fans, it seems like they're more extreme sometimes on either end, but still, you wake up, you look at the standings, we're just about into September, and if you asked a Phillies fan if you were 3.5 games back going into the final month of the season, would you be up for that? I'd say take that 100 out of 100 times.
All they have to do is be within shouting distance because 7 out of the last 11, I believe, are against the Atlanta Braves. So even if you're 3.5 back, you're right there. I just think that a lot of times, and I use the NFL analogy, if your offense is struggling big time in the preseason, sometimes that manifests itself. It carries over in the regular season. For the Phillies, the offense hasn't been there at the worst spots this year. The bullpen was never really addressed, and defensively they're a horrible defensive team, and I think it's going to bite them in the rear. I mean, I would love to have them right there last week or two of the season when they have to take on the Braves, but I just see a game where the bullpen comes in a big spot, in a tight spot, and they don't get the job done. I hope I'm wrong, but I just envision that.
Well, you see a couple of those games that they lost to the Nationals, mental mistakes, not executing, some errors, things like that. I think that's what really might frustrate you the most if you're a Phillies fan, because it's like those games are there for the taking, and it's some of the simple things that unravel them. And that's one of those that I don't know if there's a way to address that any more than it's being addressed right now. But those losses can really take a lot out of you.
When you look at Jake Arrieta and the early exit, the no decision last night, and I actually think it was actually this day. It might have been a couple years ago where he no-hit the Dodgers. Maybe you wanted some of that magic last night. But every time I mention Arrieta, I always sit there and I preface it by saying, okay, this is his biggest test of the season. And maybe 1 or 2 times he passed with flying colors. And last night wasn't one of those times. Is this who he is? I mean, is this who he is at this stage of his career?
He's not the guy that threw that no-hitter 3 years ago today. And obviously we've seen his skills have eroded a little bit. And that's one of the things, I think, when you get older and you're not as precise as a pitcher as you once were, that's what you get. You get some of those really bad outings. I mean, he got the big base hit that put them up 2-0 last night, and then he couldn't hold it himself.
Right.
So it's one of those. Yeah, he needs things to go right for him. He needs the defense to perform well, and sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes he just misses his spots, and sometimes he gets beat by better hitters too, and that can happen. But you'd like for those opportunities and those situations to be fewer than the ones where he actually does get the job done. I just think you're looking at a 32-year-old pitcher. He gets by a lot on his experience and his guile, and sometimes that's not going to work for you.
No, we used to say that about Jamie Moore, right? Anytime I spoke to him, he always mentioned, sometimes at this stage of the game, it's guts and guile, right? It's being crafty. And last night, there were some really hard hit balls by the Nationals, and of course the two-run homers by Turner and Soto in the third pretty much made it easy for that early exit for Arrieta. I'm interested to see what he does his next start. I believe it'll be Tuesday in Miami, but a 3.54 ERA. I mean, I get you can use the excuse of the defense from time to time and you run up against a good lineup, but quite frankly, I was expecting more. I wasn't. Listen, 17-6, 17-7, no, but maybe a 13-14 win pitcher, yes.
Yeah, he needs to be better if the Phillies are going to have a shot at doing anything in October.
Yeah. No, I agree. I'm curious, when you look at some of these pennant races and we kind of go down the line here in the Central, the Cardinals fire their manager, but yet they're still within striking distance. I still think the Cubs are going to win the Central. To me, the most intriguing division in all of baseball really is the NL West right now. The Diamondbacks, the Rockies, and the Dodgers. I mean, the Dodgers have been such an enigma, like the Nationals, up and down with injuries, but they're right there in shouting distance. I don't know. Do you look at the Dodgers as the front runner if they get their pitching intact and some of their guys are getting back, plus it's a veteran team, or do you think Arizona and Colorado can upset the apple cart here?
No, I think as long as Kenley Jansen is okay and able to pitch and able to close games out, I think the Dodgers are definitely the front runner in the West. I mean, they're on a 5-game win streak right now. They seem to be playing awfully well, and Manny Machado's contributing for them, so that's a huge upgrade for them this season. I think this is a team that has the talent, certainly, to get back to the World Series. And right now it's just been an issue of overcoming a lot of obstacles for them. And now it seems like things are starting to come together. Kenta Maeda got the save last night. That's what happens when you have such great depth in your pitching staff, that you can take a guy who's a pretty darn good starter in his own right and have him close out a game for you. I think the Dodgers are the team to beat there, even though they're in third place and a game out. The Diamondbacks, I like them. I like the Rockies too. That's why, as you said, this National League West race is going to be fun down the stretch as those teams, play and knock each other off.
And what the Dodgers showed you, they're a veteran team, and typically veteran teams go out. They know they have a critical 4-game home set coming up against the Diamondbacks, so what do? They take care of business. They win 5 straight, albeit against bad teams and the Padres and the Rangers. But as you mentioned, Machado, you got Turner, Machado, and Bellinger. I just looked it up, 21 for 62 with 11 extra base hits. So that offense starts to hit on all cylinders. We already know what they're capable of doing. Yeah, exactly. And their run differential is better than anybody else in the entire National League. So it shows you, what kind of explosive offense they can have when they're hitting on all cylinders. I don't want to waste too much time with my Met point, but I have to bring it up. Why are they refusing to bring up, Alonso, their September call-ups? I just don't get it.
It's service time. That's all it is. Anything else you hear from them about him needing to get better on defense, or they've got people that need to play. I mean, come on. You can't find a spot for him, and you can't see what he can do on the major league level after he's dominated, knocked in over 100 runs, and one of the top home run hitters in the minor leagues. You can't say that he hasn't deserved a shot to be there, especially, with this team not doing anything in the regular season. It's all about money and finances and getting that extra year of service time and nothing else. I just can't see any other reason. Whatever comes out of the Mets front office, you have to take it with a grain of salt.
Again, a couple of minutes with Steve Gardner, 1240 on a Thursday. Does a great job covering baseball for USA Today. Wonderful follow on Twitter as well. Kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline. Every time I start to, regain a little more confidence with the Yankees making it interesting in the AL East, I've never seen a team that's going to win over 100 games, or I should say maybe 96, 97 games, lose to bad teams. I don't get it, whether it's Euros, whether it's Tampa or the White Sox. I know baseball is a funny sport, but enough is enough. Can you just go out and beat some of these teams?
You would think so, and I know that not having Aaron Judge there in the lineup certainly hamstrings them a little bit, but still, it's a team that should be winning and should be playing and beating up on these types of teams. I wonder, they made a little bit of a run when the Red Sox got swept by the Rays, and I don't know if that gave them a little bit of a false sense of security. It's so hard to say it, but at this point, it seems to me the Yankees may be resigned to their fate, that they're going to be the wild card team, and they're going to have to play that one-game playoff, and that's what their direction is going to be for this season. So I don't know if that's an excuse or if that's a reason or if it's completely coincidental, But it's got to be frustrating if you want to see the Yankees win and get back into possibly contention in the East, to see them fall to teams like the White Sox and Orioles.
You know what it is too is we're programmed to compare them, obviously, to the Boston Red Sox because it's a rival, division, front runners are the Boston Red Sox. But it's tough to do because the Boston Red Sox are just having one of those years. I mean, you're talking about a team that's playing almost 700 baseball, 50 games over 500. It's not a fair comparison, but we're programmed to think that way. So when they start to lose to the Tampas, the Baltimores, the White Sox of the world, you start to question whether they're a good baseball team or not.
Yeah, and you look at those standings, and there's Boston 1 and the Yankees 2, but that could also be the standings for all of baseball. If you look at the winning percentages, it's Boston and then the Yankees. And it does make it difficult to live up to the standard that the Red Sox are setting, for sure.
All right, before I let you get out of here, we had this conversation the other day. The Phillies, again, they're potentially a wild card team. They're still in the thick of things in the NL East. It seems as though there's not a lot of fanfare with the Philadelphia Phillies, and they're drawing 20, 25,000. I think the numbers bear it out. I think it's a baseball problem. It's just not against the Phillies or their fan base. You take in consideration parking, gas, tolls, tickets, food, merchandise. I had a couple guys texting the other day and said, look, we can't afford it. It's a family of 4, family of 5. We're going to drop $400 or $500. We just can't do that. Baseball's got to make it a little more fan-friendly. So we know attendance is down, but is it because of that? Is it because the game is slow, too many strikeouts, just homers, it's watered down, or is it a combination of everything?
Well, the easy answer is it's a combination, but I'll tell you, if you have a number of teams that aren't really fielding competitive squads and the games maybe aren't as competitive, if you've got a team like, say, the Mets, that's not putting their best players on the field that they could and getting beaten, by a score of 13-5 or something, then that's part of the problem. I think the other part, though, Rich, is that it's not so much – baseball isn't as dependent on getting fans to the ballpark as it was.
That's what I said.
A decade, 2 decades ago. Because now you look at the new parks that are built, the emphasis is on the luxury suites, those high-profile seats behind home plate, and baseball executives – there were baseball executives who came out and said, I think one of the guys of VPs for the Yankees said, we're not really concerned about providing tickets for, lower cost tickets because we make our money on the higher price
seats,
people, and we don't want the common people sitting in these higher price seats. And I think that's kind of the attitude that a lot of the major league teams have had, is that it doesn't really matter. We're getting all of this money from TV and the internet and all of that the ballpark experience is way, way down on the priority list.
I said the same, echo your thoughts. I said the same exact thing. It's not because they're not fans of the team or the sport. They can watch it right on TV. It's summertime. The weather's been nasty. You don't want to sit in a ballpark. It's 100 degrees with kids chirping in your ear. You don't, especially if it's a slow game and you got There's so many variables to factor in, but I think at the bottom line, you're right. I don't think the owners really care if they're packing 60, 70,000, 50,000 into the ballpark because they're going to get paid. They're making money off their ownership of that team regardless. They are.
Right, and those seats, a lot of those high-priced seats, they're paid for no matter, if people show up for it or not. And that's the focus on the bottom line again. We see it in not calling up Peter Alonso. We see it in the collective bargaining agreement and the way that, the compensation rules freeze out free agents sometimes. That's being looked into. It's paying the minor league players. All sorts of things that have made it more so a business. And I hate it when people say baseball is bad and it's horrible because I love the game. But what it bothers me is a lot of the business practices make it a lot harder to love the game and love the teams at the same time. And I think that's where baseball has an issue that needs to be addressed.
In closing, I saw this special. Well, I shouldn't say special. I was watching because I love 60 Minutes, and I don't know if it was a replay or not because it was summertime. Typically, they replay, but it was on minor league baseball. It was a follow-up It's just amazing. The lack of funds, the lack of money, and if baseball really wanted to also, invest a little more, invest into the minor league system as well, because these are the players. And when I say invest, really throw some money behind them so the players can get paid. So they actually have, their livelihood's not disrupted when they realize they're only making $150 a week. And then it's so disheartening that they give up the sport.
Exactly, and you lose so many people, and some of those may have been success stories, but what I don't understand too is even the minor leagues exist so that you can get those handful of prospects that can actually come up and contribute for a major league team. I would think that the teams would want to give everybody as much opportunity to succeed and be as good as they can be, so that it makes those young players better when they get to the major leagues. And I don't know, a lot of teams just don't seem to make that investment.
No, they don't. All right, my friend, great stuff as always. Appreciate a couple extra minutes. We will talk next week. It's amazing. We got NFL to start, and then we turn around, and then we're going to have October baseball. And the season, I didn't think it was going to fly by, but it flew by.
Fantastic time of the year.
All right, you got it, pal. Be good, Steve. Always appreciate a couple moments.
Take care, Rich.
All right, you got it. Steve Gardner, kind enough to join us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline.